So number one is, what are your experiences with racism through your life?
Well,
Big question, huh?
Yeah, got a good space for this one.
well, being white, I've never experienced racism,
Right.
but I've observed it.
Okay.
You see. And when I was in the Navy, the black sailors could not be out on the flight line. They could not be mechanics. They could not be pilots in the Navy. They worked in the kitchen, and they worked in the where they served the food, and they were behind there serving food. And so they were kind of fulfilling the same kind of role that they had always fulfilled as black people, as
Servants.
slaves, serving, serving others. But this was early in the war, that they just had no status at all. And then my major one was with the Japanese. It wasn't with the black people, because when I grew up in Portland, the black people were all over in North Portland, by Jefferson High School. That's where they all went to school. But we had a lot of Japanese, and my best friends when I was growing up were Japanese kids that went to the camps, concentration camps. They were
In the U.S.
what?
The concentration camps in the U.S. Yeah.
Right, right. And so that was basically a racist decision by the President of the United States government, President Roosevelt, and the Supreme Court, because we were also fighting against Germany and Italy, but none of the German or Italian citizens were sent to camps. It was only Japanese, and they had they looked different.
Yeah.
They were different than us. Now the Germans were white, the Italians were white. They looked like us, but they just did not. And then the kind of songs that we had during the war were very racist. One was called the Dirty Little Jap, because they were not to be trusted, and so, and then when I went from Chicago to Pensacola on the train, I got to Louisville, Kentucky, and we had a layover, so I went in the train station, and they had drinking fountains that said white only.
Okay.
And toilets that said white only. That was the first time I'd ever seen that.
Is Louisville in the South?
In Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure that is.
Yeah. So that was the first time I'd ever seen that. Because when I went to the University of Oregon, the dormitory, there were 3 African Americans there that I know. One was Bobby Reynolds and his brother Walt, that both played for the Duck basketball team, and Wally and Bobby was a all-city football player in Portland, and he played in the backfield for the Ducks. And Browning Allen was another black kid who held the 100-yard dash record in Portland, and I got acquainted with all these kids because they lived in the same dormitory I did.
Yeah.
And, you know, we didn't think anything about that. You know, they were just
People.
people,
Yeah.
students like us. You know,
Mhm.
so there was a time, but there was racism at that time because the black people had to live in a certain part of the city. You know,
Yeah.
there were no black kids in my high school or grade school, so they all went to Jefferson.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
Do you think society has improved in its view towards race in your lifetime? And I think, of course, it has, with the civil rights movement in the 60s. And we passed a lot of laws on equal education and so forth over the past 50 years. But racism still exists, although we've made a lot of improvement. June and I are reading a book now called The New Jim Crow, which how the war on drugs is really racist because
towards the Mexicans, or
the penalties for having a little bit of marijuana
yeah,
put you in jail for years, you know.
Mhm.
But if you happen to be a white person,
yeah,
they put different penalties
Like-
on you.
like at Folk Life, you have all these white people smoking there, and
Yeah, but
yeah, you've got 100 white people smoking, and the policemen are just making sure they don't hurt each other or something. They're just monitoring these high people, and it's like, not gonna arrest any of them.
right. And the third one was, do you think racism is still an issue in America?
So you already kind
And I think it is. Many times it's more subtle, you know, it's not blatant like it used to be where, you know, like in the South and even around here. One of the things that I was very much involved in here in Seattle was called redlining.
What line?
Redlining. That meant that the banks would not lend money to black people in certain neighborhoods. So back in the 60s and 70s, if a black person wanted to live out here at Wedgwood, they couldn't get a loan because they limited the loans to certain neighborhoods. And there was a big campaign in the city to overturn that and require banks to make loans to anybody that was qualified, no matter where they wanted to buy a house. So that was called redlining. So, you know, I don't know where that came from, but the way I figure it out is there was a red line at the ship canal, for instance.
Okay.
You know, and so if you wanted to, a black person wanted to move up here, they couldn't get the money from the banks for a loan. Or if they were sufficiently wealthy to buy it, the neighbors would fight it because it's going to take our housing values down if black people live by us.
Well, the real estate agents were in on it too,
And the
though.
real estate agents were in on it, yeah.
Do you still think that there's still the same racist feelings people have? It's just people in power have said that racism is wrong, and it used to be.
Well, I think there is some of that, but I think there is an unconscious racism that is just in our system that we have not yet gotten rid of. So if you see two people come walking down the sidewalk toward you at night and one of them is black,
You're gonna cross
you
the
have a
street.
different attitude
Yeah.
than if the person is white. So you say, well, I'm not a racist. But, see, that is a subtle, unconscious racism that I think
People possess.
I think probably 95% of us possess that.
Yeah.
And it's based, on our history.
Yeah.
And
Some of that's also stereotypes, though.
Right,
Like
right.
if I see some white person who's got tattoos and like, yeah, he's got this rolled up and he's got his tattoos there and he's smoking and got his backwards hat with, or he's got his hood and a hat, like the combo there, earbuds coming out over the top of his sweatshirt or whatever. I might cross the street same as if I saw someone with dreadlocks who had the same kind of
yeah.
style going on, who was African American. But yeah.
I think it's a very human thing to try to that stereotyping or that kind of chunking of that assessment, trying to make an immediate assessment of some danger or not, is a very evolutionary human thing, and it is unconscious, I think, and it's been important for our survival, even though it's not accurate all the time.
Alright. So number 4 is, in your opinion, will race always be an issue in society?
Well, my dream is it won't be, but I think it will be. And again, it's that subtle, kind of unconscious racism. But it's not only, well, this is part racist, but that is the way people now regard Muslims, and they're mostly Arabic and so forth. And so there is a racist element to it, but it's primarily a religious element. And it's because, in my opinion, people don't understand there are fundamentalist Muslims just like there are fundamentalist Christians. That
Yeah.
Number 5, is racism in sports, in your opinion, an issue in the present day? Well, we have all the kinds of news about that right now.
Yeah, with Don Sterling
With
and Richard Sherman.
Right. And with the Clippers,
Yeah,
and the
Don
owners
Sterling.
and
Yeah.
so forth. So, this has nothing to do with that question, but do you know what the last team in the major, I think that I'm correct to say, the last team in the major leagues to have a black player?
The holdout, the everybody else had a black player until this team finally.
The Clippers?
Boston Red Sox.
Boston Red Sox.
Right. Baseball.
Yeah. Alright. I thought you were talking about basketball still.
So why? What insight do you have about Red Sox holding out or not having a black player for a long time?
I think it had to do with the ownership,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they have them now.
Yeah.
Talk about the Redskins.
And of course,
Oh yeah, the Redskins.
one of the problems with I'm making a joke now. One of the problems with the Red Sox, since they hired back players, they're on a 10-game losing streak now. They're in last place in the American League.